My name is Olivia Monroe. I'm 29, a graphic designer who moonlights as a small business brand strategist. And on this Thanksgiving, I'm the daughter holding a pie knife while everyone cheers for my brother. Cold air needles the driveway. A silver sedan glides to a glittering stop, a gold bow shouting from its hood. Mom presses a tiny velvet box into Noah's palm. Dad whistles. Cousins lift their phones. Then my cue arrives from the doorway, the same as every year. Olivia, could you slice the pie? Not, come look. Not, this is for both of you. I move because I've trained myself to move, measuring out politeness the way you level flour in a cup. I will say this plainly, because euphemisms are how stories go missing. My dad and mom bought my brother a new car while I got nothing on Thanksgiving. And when I revealed the lottery ticket I had prepared for them, the holiday changed shape. Not with fireworks, but with the quiet that happens when a lake freezes and writes itself a new shoreline. Noah taps the fob and the headlights blink twice like laughter. Mom murmurs about safety and his career taking off. Dad kisses her temple as if signing a contract. I keep smiling with my teeth and not my eyes. Last night, I picked up a holiday scratch-off at a gas station because Dad jokes every year about lucky cranberry numbers. I had planned a moment. After dessert, a small flourish, an envelope slid across the table, a blessing wrapped in paper. I wanted them to see me without me having to wave my arms. Inside, nutmeg leans against evergreen. The good china waits under chandelier light, white rims thin as breath. On the counter, a smart speaker blinks, obedient and patient. Over the mantel hangs a photograph of our lakeside cottage in winter, the dock stretching into pewter water. On a shelf sits my grandmother's spiral notebook labeled in her fine hand, Rose's Pumpkin Pie. I lay out forks, breathe, and pretend this is any other celebration. Dad raises his glass and praises Noah's grit, Noah's prospects, Noah's return on investment. The phrase lands like change in a pocket that isn't mine. I touch the envelope seam with my thumb. My decision is a coin flipping in slow motion. I let it spin while I cut generous slices and pass them around the room. Laughter layers itself like frosting. A cousin asks for extra whipped cream. Somewhere down the hall, a door closes like a period. I carry 2 cups of coffee toward the sofa and put one beside Mom's elbow. Before we do coffee, I say, lifting a cream card just enough for its seal to catch the chandelier light, I brought a little surprise to keep a family tradition going. Heads tilt. The room leans. My heart steadies. Then I smile. After dessert, I add, light a steam, and slide the card back beside me. The moment seals itself as neatly as an envelope. They think it's nothing. I know it isn't. I set the cups in a neat line. Steady, my hand on the pie knife, and feel the night begin to turn. Someone asked for seconds. I learned a long time ago that applause can drown out questions, so I tuck mine into my pocket with the cream envelope and let ritual go on. Someone asked for seconds. I keep my voice soft, my plan folded small where only I can feel it. Tonight. I load plates into the washer until their steady clack becomes a metronome I can trust. Steam fogs the pane and the kitchen light turns. A spoon slips, taps the sink, and spins once. I breathe through my nose and concentrate on ordinary things. Rinse, tilt, stack. Because ordinary is a raft. The cylinder on the counter brightens with a soft ring. It's supposed to play music, but the line between rooms tangles and the speaker becomes a tunnel. Voices arrive clean as cold air. Noah's the future, Mom says, cheerful and certain. He's building real equity. He needs a foundation. I'll take him to look at that SUV tomorrow, Dad answers, like scheduling a dentist. Safety first, image second. Mom sighs. Art is nice, but it's nice as a hobby. She doesn't think about scale. We've optimized, Dad says. Noah's path has actual ROI. The car is leverage. Mom again, almost tender. If money gets tight, we can finally sell the lake place. It sits empty. She never uses it. The word sell steals air. I picture gray water and a wooden dock that lifts the sky without asking credit. I picture summers where conversation was just loons and wind. My hand grips a dish towel until the threads write their own map into my palm. I'm awake. I tap the speaker off. Music returns. The house keeps moving. Laughter, sports, a microwave door. I dry the spoon, slide it into its drawer, and decide not to rehearse speeches. People imagine favoritism is a shout. It's more often a spreadsheet. Words like optimize, return, leverage, sound neutral while picking sides. I carry coffee to the living room and set cups where hands will find them. "Thanks, Liv," someone says. Mom gestures me toward an empty spot on the ottoman. Dad narrates interest rates to Noah as if reading a bedtime story. Keys jingle. The television promises trucks and smart thermostats. I practice the posture of neutrality and swallow questions. If we are going to speak their language, we will need grammar. I have grammar, timelines, documentation, ledgers. I was raised to say please and to balance a checkbook. I taught myself to archive emails and keep receipts flat. I think about the cottage and a door swinging shut. Then I think about time, a tool when you stop letting others use it against you. From the sofa, Mom calls, "Liv, grab a picture of your brother." I frame the three of them, my parents like parentheses around Noah, and take 2 photos. I hand the phone back and keep my voice even. "I'm going to head out before the advisory hits," I say. No one argues. There's a new car to admire. There's also a road that leads north, and tonight it belongs to me. In the hallway, I take my coat, slip the envelope deeper into the inside pocket, and pause beneath the lake photo. The dock points straight, the water beneath always moves. I can move too. I zip the coat, nod once to Aunt Rose as she watches me from the kitchen doorway, and step into the cold with a quiet plan. On my way to the door, Dad repeats his favorite phrase, "We optimize." I let it pass and write my own. Document, verify, decide. The cottage will not be an afterthought. I put on my gloves, tuck the envelope closer, and step into the cold with a quiet plan. For once, mine. Entirely. If you want to measure history, count the objects that survive it. In our house, a teal keychain tassel, skates hung like trophies, framed photos that outshone any report card I carried. I was 10 when the community center posted an 8-week art class for $75. I brought the flyer home flat and hopeful. Mom read it like a bill and said, "Maybe next time, honey." 2 weeks later, she signed $300 a month to a skating school and told me how important it is to invest early in talent. At 16, I got a backpack, a clearance sweater, and a used laptop for essays. Noah posed beside his first car, bow fat as a holiday wreath, and Dad said, "Training requires wheels." "You can use the family car when you need," he added. I learned to want more quietly and to praise loudly when wants landing elsewhere were met. Application season taught me to translate hunger into forms. They hired a private counselor for Noah. I built my own scholarship matrix on a sticky-noted kitchen table. When my partial award email arrived, Mom called me independent and squeezed my shoulders like a polite stranger. They covered Noah's costs and called it scaffolding. I took loans and called it not drowning. Mercies kept bitterness from crusting over everything. Aunt Rose clipped programs from my art shows and mailed them with smiley faces. A librarian told me my color choices helped people breathe better. A teacher wrote that my essays sounded like footsteps on new snow. I kept those sentences in a pocket my phone couldn't crush. Design taught me engineering without steel. Load, balance, contrast, negative space. Families have negative space. The room around what earns applause. I stacked small wins. A campus poster prize, a regional packaging award, the first client who mailed a check to my name. At dinners, I waited for gaps that never opened, then let my updates live without witnesses. Independence is a room you decorate in quiet colors. After college, I rented a 1-bedroom, paid bills on time, and started a micro studio at my kitchen table. On Sundays, I sat on the dock until my breath matched the water. The place taught me to trust what makes no noise. Memory is a flexible lens, but some frames never warp. The night our neighbor's maple dumped its leaves all at once, Noah won a regional title, and Dad toasted the victory. I washed dishes and thought about the same $75 that was always a lot when it was for me. I told myself I wasn't keeping score. I was learning the rules. Last night I stopped for gas because the light blinked orange and because routine carries you through holidays. By the register sat a stack of seasonal scratch-offs, Dad's yearly joke about lucky cranberry numbers. I bought one, not because I believe in luck, but because rituals can be rewritten. Back home, I scraped a corner to make sure I wasn't gifting a dud. Silver dust curled. Symbols fell into alignment. I read the rules twice and pressed the card flat under a cookbook. I did not scream. I did what I always do when something big arrives. I set a chair for it and waited for instructions. That chair is still there this morning, tucked under my table like a promise. If instructions don't come, I'll write them. I have pens, patience, a ledger memory, and a pulse that knows when to keep quiet. Tonight. The room loosens after the toast, and conversation puddles into small islands. Sports at the sofa, calendar math by the door, a debate about best pie. I stand where a hallway splits and watch both streams move without me. The envelope rests against my ribs like a trained bird. I could release it and hear applause. Or it could fly and be named by someone else. I had planned theater, even a line about Dad's cranberry numbers. The daughter in me wants to offer and watch them glow. The woman in me knows glare can blind. This isn't generosity versus selfishness. It's choosing fire for warmth, not for signaling ships that will never come. So I do the simplest hard thing, nothing public. I keep the envelope, not forever, not in bitterness, just not here, not now, not in a room that turns everything into ROI. It isn't refusing love, it's refusing to fund a script that deletes me. Boundaries aren't walls, they're shorelines that keep continents from dissolving. To be sure I'm not choosing out of anger, I inventory facts like a suitcase check. Fact, the ticket is real. I studied the rules twice. Fact, the family tradition exists. Dad loves luck jokes, Mom loves spectacle when it points at Noah. Fact, once a thing is spoken here, it stops belonging to the speaker. Fact, I still want to be kind. Kind isn't easy. I pour decaf for some and regular for others, keeping my tone warm. When Mom mentions cargo mats, I nod. When Dad calculates a payment, I ask if he wants lemon with his water. When Noah grins, I return it. Civility is a seatbelt while I steer through ice. Aunt Rose catches my eye and tilts her chin, a question only I can hear. I touch my pocket and give the smallest nod. She relaxes by a millimeter. My phone flashes an alert. Lake effect snow arriving early. Good. Weather can be an alibi. I should head out before the roads go white, I announce, and a few faces lift with the relief of a solved logistic. Mom thanks me for helping with dishes. Dad says, drive safe, then turns back to tomorrow. In the coat room, I slide on gloves and practice the word later, so I won't confuse it with never. Later when documents are in place. Later when I won't trade a win for a wound. Later when this ticket can be foundation, not contested terrain. I tuck the envelope into the inside pocket, press the fabric flat, and count to 10 so my body understands my mind. At the door, I thank my parents for dinner. I do not say what else I'm carrying. I kiss my mother's cheek, hug my father, squeeze my brother's shoulder, and step into weather that feels like a rule I have just written. The air is clean. I tell myself this decision isn't a secret. It's a promise to handle a gift well. I breathe, walk toward the car. Tonight. The highway north is a ribbon I could sketch. Lanes shine like slate. Wipers keep time. Heat stays low. The envelope rides inside my coat, above my heartbeat, and for the first mile, I match my breath to the engine. I talk to the dark like a friend who won't interrupt. Love isn't an accounting system. Family isn't a cap table. But money is a language my parents speak. I can answer without surrendering my accent. Step 1, verify everything. Step 2, protect privacy. Step 3, decide what to tell and when. I underline step 2 until it leaves an impression. In the quiet, I recite terms: revocable trust, blind trust, grantor, fiduciary duty, press waiver. Winners who survive don't become mascots. They hire counsel and let paper carry noise. I picture firms I've heard on the radio and a few from a forum. Tomorrow I'll call until someone answers kindly and precisely. The opposite of spectacle is process. Between exits, 2 acronyms bob like boys: UTMA and 529, gifts to minors, college funds, accounts for one child's benefit. They surface because objects carry instructions before words do. A plow passes and throws salt against my door. I think about the 3 versions of tonight: offer the card and let the room draft plans without my name, stage a bonfire and keep ash, or let time thicken around fact until it can hold weight. The adult I'm working to be would recognize the third as care. Near the city, the streets widen. I park under a humming lamp and climb the stairs to my place, where nothing was handed to me and everything has been enough. I slide the envelope between 2 cookbooks, then take it out again. Fear and caution look similar in low light. A trick I saw online works. 5 minutes in the freezer loosens adhesive. I check the ticket like a pilot. Slow, exact. Then seal it and breathe in 4s. The laptop wakes with a glow like a start over. I type, claim lottery anonymously, New York Trust, and watch statutes and law firm pages bloom. I save 3 numbers. I write questions in a column. Anonymity options. Tax. Boundaries between personal funds and family asks. What to do if someone insists on publicity. How to protect a property not in my name. Just after 1, Aunt Rose texts, when you swing by tomorrow, take your grandmother's recipe book from the hutch. There's an envelope tucked into the spine. She told me to make sure it found you when the time was right. My breath pauses from recognition. The world has been clearing its throat. Now it speaks. Privacy isn't secrecy. It's stewardship. I don't owe an audience to every joy, especially in a house that spends feelings like coupons. I picture a trust with a plain name, a lawyer who prefers commas to cameras, a bank officer who checks identity before speaking. If caution looks like silence, I can live with that. Inside, it sounds like a future. I lock the deadbolt, set a glass of water by the bed, and leave a pen on the nightstand like a promise. Snow rattles once, then settles. Before sleep, I try the word later and decide it tastes like discipline, not delay. The ticket is safe. The plan exists. Morning can bring the next instruction, and I will follow it line by line. I step past the chatter, head for the dining room, and open the hutch with the tiny brass key that sticks. The spiral notebook waits where Aunt Rose said it would. The cover is flour-dusted and labeled in my grandmother's neat slant, Rose's Pumpkin Pie. When I lift it, cinnamon rises from paper touched by careful hands. Aunt Rose appears beside me. Spine, she murmurs and taps the cardboard curve. I tilt the book and a cream envelope slides free like a leaf. My name sits on the front in familiar ink. I open it with a butter knife. Dear Liv, the letter begins. If you're reading this, it means I timed something right. I wanted you to have 2 things, a recipe for pie and a recipe for care. Years ago, I set up an UTMA for you and a 529 for school. Your father is custodian. The money is for your beginnings. Tuition, books, a first place to live. The custodian must manage only for your benefit. She underlined, must twice. Postscript, do not thin the edges on pie or on yourself. The wind will steal them. I refold the letter, unfold it again, then hold it to the window to catch light. Directions, not poetry. Aunt Rose's mouth makes a small line of approval as I nod toward the stairs. Office, she says. The printer blinks green. I pull the bottom drawer, which sticks, then gives. Inside, manuals, warranty slips, school photos, and a slim folder labeled College Funds, O. Monroe. I open the folder. Statements line up in order. Deposits, gift, interest, transfer. Withdrawals, tuition, books, rent. The early years look right. Then the columns tilt. A check to a dealer, training, equipment, Transfers labeled family needs, a name that is not mine. Noah's initials in a memo line like a thumbprint. I read the custodian clause at the bottom again, then look back at the letter with the underlined must. I do not panic. Paper answers. Paper. I photograph every page with my phone. The camera shutter, soft. I place the originals back, close the drawer, and slide the letter into the book. Aunt Rose waits in the hall with her coat still on, a lookout. In the kitchen, normal continues. Reheated stuffing, a missing lid, talk about tomorrow's errands. I pour a glass of water because it won't stain. I thank my parents for dinner, hug my brother, and say I have errands downtown. Mom kisses my cheek and says, "Drive safe." Dad asks about my tires. I nod, because both can be true in the same minute. In the car, the recipe book rides shotgun. I slide the letter into my inner pocket where heat can't reach it. The words carry weight, account numbers, bank name, dates, balances, and the phrase "for your benefit" humming like a bass line. The lake photo flashes, and I press my tongue to my teeth until the urge to knock on doors passes. I don't need confrontation. I need a timeline and counsel. Tomorrow, I'll call the firms, ask about recovery and records, and bring copies that don't blink. My grandmother left me a map with 2 routes, pie and protection. I'll follow both. The car warms, snow drifts. I set the book gently on the seat and drive away carrying instructions, not just feelings. For the first time in a long time, I feel the ground hold under my step. The map holds, steady. My first call is to a sudden wealth firm that promises privacy without drama. I provide only what they need: initials, a prepaid number, and a plain description of a holiday ticket that requires discretion. The partner speaks like someone who irons his sentences. He explains anonymity is possible if I create a trust to claim the prize, and that the trust, not I, can retain him to stand in the lottery office where cameras wait for mistakes. I write the steps. Form the trust, open a bank account, appoint a trustee, claim, deposit, breathe. He dictates a modest trust name and suggests a registered agent so nothing noisy reaches my apartment. We cover taxes, timing, press waivers, and how checks are cut. You will not pose for pictures, he says. The trust will. I agree. Spectacle is a currency I will not spend. He emails engagement papers. I sign digitally and feel the first layer of armor click into place. A tamper-evident envelope arrives for the original ticket. I slide it in and smooth the red strip flat. The trustee confirms a dedicated account and a rule I like: distributions in writing, never by phone. Next, I retain an estates attorney who reads more slowly than anyone I know. I bring my grandmother's letter, the recipe book pages, and photos of the UTMA and 529 statements. We meet in a conference room bright with winter. He adjusts his glasses and draws 3 boxes on a legal pad: accounting, recovery, guardrails. Then he offers the sentence that rearranges the room. The custodian of a UTMA owes a fiduciary duty to the minor beneficiary. Expenditures must be solely for that beneficiary's benefit. Transfers to a Sibling, even for family needs, are a breach. The words fit in my notebook and somehow also in my bones. He outlines the path: a courteous demand for a full accounting within 30 days, a sworn declaration explaining any non-qualified withdrawal, bank records by subpoena if needed, repayment with statutory interest, restoration of the 529 for permitted uses only. We begin politely, he adds. If they comply, nobody needs court. If they do not, paper will carry your voice. I nod because nodding keeps my hands from shaking. We prepare 2 packets. The first protects the win: a trust certificate, trustee appointment, mailbox rental, and instructions that keep curiosity outside. The second corrects the past: a letter to my parents citing the statute, requesting statements, invoices, and explanations for every dollar that did not touch my education or necessary living expenses. The copier hums, the notary seals, the receptionist counts pages twice. I initial where tabs bloom like flags. Outside, air bites clean. I buy a fireproof file box and label dividers with a black marker. Trust, claim, banking. UTMA 529, cottage. At my kitchen table, I copy one sentence into a notebook. The custodian's duty is to act solely for the beneficiary. Under it, I write my answer. I am the beneficiary. The words look steadier in ink. Emails arrive like rails settling under a train. The trustee schedules the claim appointment. The estate's attorney sends calendar holds titled Accounting Demand and Records Preservation. The registered agent confirms a neutral address. I turn off my phone and fold laundry because ordinary motion keeps me from floating. Process, not performance, will get me home. Before bed, I tape a small rule inside a cabinet where no one else will see. Trust first, feelings second. Then I lock the file box, slide it under the desk, and let the apartment go quiet enough to hear my breath line up with the plan. I wake before sunrise to the scrape of plows and brew coffee strong enough to steady my hands. The letters went out yesterday. Today is for follow-through. I build a timeline on foam board above my desk, blue tape running left to right. Yellow notes read, tuition, books, rent. Pink reads, NOAA car deposit, training fees, equipment. One green square asks, miscellaneous. Why? My attorney files the formal request for a full accounting of the UTMA and the 529, my name spelled exactly as my grandmother wrote it. Olivia Monroe. He also sends preservation notices to the bank and the brokerage, so nothing is purged under the banner of storage optimization. He CCs me on a precise cover email. I print it, punch holes, and slide it behind a tab labeled Accounting. Excitement and cold run together in my chest, like opening a door onto winter and choosing to step out anyway. By midday, the bank's records officer calls to confirm receipt. Her voice is practical and kind without decoration. She cannot release check images without a subpoena, but she can provide statement summaries today and certify that microfilm exists for prior years. Expect a secure link within the hour, she says. We'll keep eyes on the reels. I thank her and write the time on the board. Waiting becomes measurable instead of vague. The link arrives behind multi-factor codes. I download PDFs named by month and lay them like tiles across my screen. I trace lines with a ruler, deposits marked gift and interest, withdrawals marked check, electronic transfer, debit. Some entries are exactly what they should be. Tuition drafts, bookstore purchases, my campus housing deposit. Others scratch like sand. Repeated transfers to a joint account ending in digits I recognize from Dad's checks, followed a day later by debits tagged to a dealer code and to the rink ledger. 2 hours later, a courier delivers a thick envelope from my parents' attorney. Inside is a letter acknowledging my request and a stack of photocopies, partial statements, clipped invoices, an unsigned spreadsheet titled Household Contributions. I build a second pile beside the bank PDFs and start cross-referencing. The household sheet lists athletic training, vehicle maintenance, and uniforms. Nothing bears my name. My pulse evens instead of racing. Paper prefers patience. It rewards sequence. As dusk pulls the light thin, a pattern surfaces. Beginning 5 years ago, shortly after Noah's first big season, the UTMA shows withdrawals in quiet rhythm. $40 here, $120 there, $300 at month end when extra ice time posts. Each transfer lands in that same destination account, then within a day exits to the dealer or the rink. The 529 tells its own restrained story. Qualified tuition 1 semester, then lines labeled reimbursement to custodian with no supporting detail, followed by another payment to that joint account. I color code the months on the timeline and add narrow strips of red where the joint account appears. The board becomes a map you could drive at night. I open a document and title it Findings, Preliminary. I list dates, amounts, destinations, and add a simple note for each, not for Olivia's exclusive benefit. Screenshots attach. Account digits are cropped. Page numbers stamp the corners so nothing wanders. I send the packet to counsel with subject accounting evidence, pattern. His reply arrives 5 minutes later. Pattern established. Next, sworn accounting, demand restoration with statutory interest. I pin that sentence under a new heading, action, and take one long breath. The room feels newly plumbed. I am still nervous, still cold, but the cold now has edges, and edges can hold a shape steady. I remember the first afternoon my grandmother taught me to flute a crust, the kitchen smelling like cinnamon and hot metal, while sunlight leaned through the curtains as if it knew where to land. She dusted flour across the board, then into my palms, and said, "Edges matter. Don't thin the rim, sweetheart. The wind will steal it." I laughed at the image of breezes eating pie, and she smiled the way people do when they know a child will understand later. She guided my thumbs along the dough. Press and turn, never drag, build a ridge that can hold its own weight. We baked in quiet that felt like instruction, because patience, she said, gives butter time to learn its job. When I hurried, the dough broke into small protests. She tapped my wrist and said, "Strength isn't pressing harder. Strength is keeping shape." I didn't know then how many rooms would try to sand my edges down. I only knew the crust looked better when I stopped apologizing to it. Her tools were plain, an old rolling pin, a fork with one bent tine for vents, a chipped cup with a pencil line at the right ounce. While the pie cooled, we watched the lake take the afternoon into itself, and she said, "Water doesn't shout to be respected. It keeps the shore honest." Later, I learned she had written honesty into deeds and letters like embroidery, small, exact stitches holding the family to itself. After she died, the recipe notebook lived in the hutch beside the good plates, and I reread her notes the way other people reread first love letters. She wrote like someone who understood attention as shelter. "Keep butter cold, do not overhandle, let the filling settle." Between those lines lived the sentence that returns whenever a room asks me to be softer than is safe. Do not thin the edges on pie or on yourself. When I asked about art as a kid, she didn't hand me compliments, she handed me verbs. Draw daily, keep receipts, hang nothing until you like waking up to it. Beauty is work, she meant, and work deserves records. She probably knew before anyone that I'd need both. Once, after a holiday dinner where praise pooled around my brother, she gave me index cards and a felt tip pen and said, "Catalog your wins, the world won't do it for you." I wrote small victories on small squares, poster prize, scholarship interview, a client who mailed a check to my own name, and tucked them into a shoebox that later felt like scaffolding. The week a storm pushed waves under the dock boards, she took me to the lake at dusk and tapped a plank with her toe. "Boards flex," she said, "but set your foot flat and they'll hold." A sentence I remember whenever conversation tilts under numbers and my hands want to grip harder. Flat foot. Honest step. That cadence has steadied me through meetings that tried to turn generosity into leverage. Now statement links arrive and the trust appointment sits on my calendar like a quiet lighthouse, and I picture her hands ghosting mine again. Press and turn, not push and tear. I can hold myself without breaking, and I can hold others to shape without raising my voice. Paper can be my rolling pin, law my pie weight that keeps bubbles from becoming blisters. I place her photo on my desk facing the timeline I built, her mouth composed in the same line she wore while testing a crust with 2 fingertips, unyielding, not unkind. I speak her sentence into the room to hear how it sounds in air, not only on paper. Do not thin the edges. In that sound, I hear wind, but I also hear the future. The moment I will repeat her words when a table grows crowded and someone suggests selling what actually holds us together. I picture my thumb finding the ridge and holding, the way a boundary steadies a body that wants to disappear. I breathe and let her lesson anchor me. I'm labeling folders at the studio when my phone lights with Dad's name. I let it ring twice, then answer on speaker so my hands keep working. He opens without preface. "What are you doing, Olivia?" "Protecting what was set aside for me, the way Grandma intended," I say, "and keeping things on paper so nobody has to guess. This letter, 30 days, sworn statements. You've turned family into paperwork." "Paper is how we remember correctly," I reply. "You'll send the accounting for the UTMA and the 529. We'll sort it cleanly." "You had a roof, meals, gas money. Real life costs more than tuition lines," he says. "Your brother needed capital when momentum hit. The car, the training, Those weren't indulgences, they were investments. That's how families build. Investments come from the investor's funds, I say. A custodial account is not a family wallet. It exists for one child, by law. Silence stretches. Art degrees are fires you feed with money, he says finally. Noah brings clients. He walks into rooms and the name works. You do posters. I design brands that pay my rent, I answer. And the statute doesn't care whose career you prefer. We've always optimized, he insists. We moved resources where they returned the most. That Lexus helps Noah close. Your work is beautiful, but beauty doesn't keep lights on. It kept mine on, I say. And optimization doesn't outrank fiduciary duty. The custodian must act solely for the beneficiary. That beneficiary is me. He clears his throat. So what do you want, exactly? Simple, I say. A complete accounting with documents to support every withdrawal, restoration of any sums used for non-qualified purposes with statutory interest, and a sworn declaration so we're not arguing memory. You're threatening to sue your parents. No, I say, steady enough to surprise us both. I'm offering a path that stays out of court. Meet those terms, and this ends as paperwork and not headlines. He laughs once. Headlines? You think anyone cares about our accounts? I'd rather none of us find out, I say. I value privacy as much as you do. We're listing the lake place because repairs are a money sink. That's stewardship. Stewardship starts with honoring the deed, I answer. We can discuss repairs after the accounting. He hears it, the boundary, not the threat. Your grandmother always spoiled you, he mutters. She taught me to keep edges, I say. That's different. Payments take time. We can do small amounts each month. Council will set a schedule, I reply. Secured, so no one worries about forgetfulness. If you need an extension, ask in writing. He goes quiet. A turn signal clicks. You used to be easier. I used to think being easy was the price of belonging, I say. Now I think belonging has to survive honesty. Your mother will gather what she can. I'll talk to the bank. Good, I say. Email the scans to your lawyer and copy mine. Keep originals intact. And if we disagree on interpretations? Then the numbers will speak, I say. That's what they're for. Drive safely, he says, catches himself. You're not driving. I'm working, I say. That's the point. When the line goes quiet, I write a memo while the details are fresh. Time, tone, phrases, optimize, investment, posters, so memory can't repaint the scene. I send it to counsel and slide a copy into the file. My hands have stopped shaking. What remains is the certainty that boundaries are not anger, they're design. I return to my layout, adjust a kerning pair, and let the room settle around the sound of work. The family thread wakes my phone at dawn with alarms. Tight quarter, unexpected expenses, time to be realistic. Mom writes that the cottage has become dead equity, and Dad replies with the phrase he trusts more than lullabies, optimize. A minute later, Noah drops a link to a SUV with a caption about clients loving a clean arrival. In their arithmetic, the solution is tidy. Sell the lake place, fund the image, call it stewardship. I stare at the framed photograph on my studio shelf and feel the water in it darken, as if the lake already knows what they intend. I refuse to answer the thread. Instead, I grind coffee, open the recipe notebook, and lay my grandmother's letter beside it like a witness. A small mark near the bottom draws me, a raised dot before a line in smaller handwriting. I skipped on the first read because relief drowned out curiosity. Now I read it with feet on the floor. See addendum to deed regarding first right to purchase, created to ensure home by the lake remains a harbor for the eldest grandchild pursuing the arts. My name is not printed. The description sits on my shoulders like a shawl. County records load with the grace of a rotary phone, yet persistence is a key that never breaks. I search my grandparents' names, then my parents'. A deed unfurls, followed by a one-page rider stamped 20 years ago. The language is plain enough to taste. Before any sale to a third party, the eldest grandchild shall have the right of first refusal on terms. Written. Notice required. 30 days. Failure to notice voids the sale. The notary seal bites the paper like a coin. I take a screenshot and read it again to be certain I am not manufacturing hope. I print 3 copies and photograph the clause in case the printer sulks. My email to counsel is brief. Recorded ROFR located. Please confirm enforceability and advise next steps. His reply arrives faster than heat from the baseboard. Enforceable. We will record a notice immediately and stand ready to tender if they proceed. Use this gently. It is leverage, not a hammer. I copy the exact wording into my notebook so it will live in ink, not only pixels. The midpoint of my story tilts, and for the first time since Thanksgiving, the tilt belongs to me. I breathe, slowly. I open the thread again. Dad has posted a realtor's number with a line about unlocking value. Noah adds a calendar poll for test driving. I still type nothing. Instead, I draft a quiet letter addressed to whatever listing agent appears, enclosing the recorded clause and designating counsel for communication. The tone is almost boring. Acknowledgement requested. Notice to be sent to my attorney. Any offer must be presented to me on identical terms before. Acceptance. Drama prefers noise. Paper prefers sequence. I choose sequence because it survives weather. I send a certified copy and log the mailing number by hand. By afternoon, the lake photo looks less like nostalgia and like a contract fulfilled. The cottage is no chip to cash. It is the room that taught me center. I press my palm to the frame and repeat the line my grandmother taught over pie dough. Don't thin the edges. Boundaries are not anger. They are design. I text Aunt Rose one line. Found what Grandma tucked into the deed, and she answers with a heart and word kept. Wind pushes the window. Let's go. I do not plan a scene. I plan notice. The lever exists, and levers are for lifting. My studio takes shape the week after the deed clause changes everything. I sign a short lease on a corner space with brick that drinks the morning light and a door that closes with a reliable click. I choose a name that feels like a promise and a practice. Olive Branch. It's my offering to work, to clients, and to myself. A way to build without spectacle. I scrub the windows, assemble secondhand desks, and wheel in a printer that hums like a small engine. On the wall, I hang a corkboard labeled Pipeline, and beside it a calendar whose squares look wide enough for different futures. Aunt Rose becomes my first paying client. Her bakery smells like nutmeg and warm vanilla, even when the ovens rest, and the glass case reflects a person I recognize, someone who kept moving when applause leaned elsewhere. She wants new packaging, a storefront sign that reads like a welcome, and a menu that matches the pies instead of apologizing for them. I sketch between customers, test a palette of cream, cinnamon, and winter berry, and draft a tagline that tastes like her crust. When I send the first proof, she refuses my discount and hands me a check that lands with the soft authority of fairness. The second client arrives through a neighbor who remembers a poster I made years ago. A local manufacturer is launching a green product line and needs identity, labels, and a small site that doesn't overpromise. Their conference room holds a living fern and a whiteboard crowded with arrows. I listen more than I speak, then translate mission into measurable words. Recyclable, non-toxic inks, supply chain transparency, end-of-life instructions. We sign a scope that pays deposits on time and respects feedback windows. I walk out with a folder under my arm and the rare sensation of being paid for what I do before convincing anyone why it matters. I set up systems so the work scales without fraying. Every project gets a welcome packet, a plain language contract, an invoice schedule, and a single email thread with a subject line that cannot be mistaken. I create checklists for proofing, color profiles, and file delivery, and a parking place for approvals, so nobody rummages through memory at deadline. The printer purrs through test sheets while sunlight climbs the brick. A small plant on the windowsill starts to lean toward the glass, and I turn it gently back, the way I'm learning to turn myself toward the parts of life that actually feed me. Between deliverables, I receive confirmation from my attorney that the right of first refusal has been recorded and the listing agent has paused any marketing until proper notice is given. The message isn't dramatic. It's 3 lines and a scanned stamp. Yet my shoulders drop an inch. The cottage is no longer a rumor. It is a contract with teeth and a door I can keep. I reply with thank you and save the PDF in 2 places, then get back to drawing labels that look like sunlight on glass. Peace feels like competence worn daily, not a holiday miracle. In the evening, I ride a bus to college and enroll in basic law for entrepreneurs. The instructor explains consideration, clean title, indemnification, and how a lien breathes. I copy phrases, underline liquidated damages, and note questions about security interests and notice. Class feels like armor that moves. Back at Olive Branch, I water the plant, lock the door, and promise, grow steady, spend quietly, defend clearly. Room answers with a soft hum I can build on. Their attorney emails on a Monday morning with a single sentence that sounds like a white flag. My clients propose confidential mediation. I answer within the hour. Agreed, if we keep it on paper and on schedule. By Thursday, we're seated in a neutral suite over a bank, the kind of room where bad carpet and a ticking clock insist people behave. A pitcher of water fogs the glass. A notepad waits at each chair, along with pens that write too smoothly for lies. He opens with civility. We'd like to resolve this without filings or noise. I lean forward just enough to make it negotiation, not confession. Then let's make the terms plain. I slide a 1-page memo across the table. It lists 4 points, each in a sentence that can pass a stress test. 1. Full restitution of custodial withdrawals that did not benefit me, with statutory interest, paid into my trust rather than to me individually. 2. Restoration of any 529 funds used for non-qualified purposes. 3. A private apology letter acknowledging the custodian's duty to act solely for the named beneficiary. 4. The cottage cannot be used as collateral or liquidated to satisfy any obligation. The recorded right of first refusal stands untouched. He reads, eyes moving like a scanner. My parents avoid my face as if looking would turn me to smoke. The attorney clears his throat. Repayment, yes, but over time. The apology, he pauses. Would be private. I nod. Private is the point. Accuracy is the other. He suggests a repayment schedule. I add security so the promises have bones. An automatic transfer on the 1st of each month, a confession of judgment held in escrow in case of default, and a pledge of liquid assets. Not the cottage, not any part of it. Use commissions, savings, or the condo, I say evenly. The lake house is off the table. Mom flinches at the word pledge. Dad tries warmth. Olivia, we're family, which is why I'm here and not in court. I answer. This is a chance to do it cleanly. The lawyer proposes a compliance monitor so I don't have to chase dates. I agree and request quarterly certifications under penalty of perjury. We set a 30-day deadline for the sworn accounting with supporting documents for every transfer not tied to my education or necessary living expenses. I add a clause. No one contacts me directly about money. All requests move through counsel. He writes it down. We craft the letter requirement last. I name the sentence that must appear. As custodian, I had a fiduciary duty to act solely for Olivia Monroe's benefit. No metaphors, no revisionist history, no if anyone felt hurt. Signed by both parents, delivered to me, not the trust. It stays private unless they breach the agreement. The room holds that for a long breath. Then their attorney nods. We can do that. He drafts a memorandum of understanding while the clock ticks the kind of tick people use for focus. The document grows in quiet paragraphs. Payment schedules, security, restoration, certifications, non-disparagement that does not gag truth, the untouched status of the cottage and my right of first refusal, a venue clause for any dispute. He prints 2 copies. The machine purrs like a patient animal. We all read every line. I circle a stray may and replace it with shall. He smiles because precision is a shared language. When the signature pages arrive, nobody makes a speech. Pens move. Dates land. My father's handwriting shrinks to fit the box. My mother's loops flatten. The mediator witnesses, then slides the set toward me. I sign for acceptance on behalf of my trust, my hand steady, my breath quiet. No hugs, no group photo, only ink drying into a path. Outside, winter light sharpens the city and the wind tastes like a clean plate. I text Aunt Rose. Done. Paper, not noise. Back at Olive Branch, I scan the agreement, file it under UTMA and trust, and set 3 reminders. Accounting due, first transfer, letter delivery. The clock in my studio ticks with the same steady courage as the one in the conference room. I water the plant, open a new job folder, and write today's headline where only I will see it. We ended a storm with signatures. Whispers move faster than cars on Maple Street. They slide through group texts and over church coffee. One cousin posts that I broke the family over a spreadsheet. An aunt at the market calls art a hobby. The story they prefer is simple. Olivia demanded money and slammed a door. I do not chase it. I let rumor circle because the agreement sits signed in my file box and the cottage clause sleeps like a lock that works. I keep working and let paper outlive breath. Night brings the only light that listens. My phone glows on the counter while pumpkin cookies rise in the oven. I scroll once through the family thread and set the screen face down before my pulse climbs. Stairs it does not need. Aunt Rose texts 2 sentences that land like a hand on my shoulder. Silence is also justice. Let the calendar speak. I answer with a heart and a brief, I'm steady. The timer ticks, and choices feel like temperature, not performance. Half-truths travel light. A distant cousin claims I threatened court. I didn't. Someone else says the cottage was falling down, so selling would be kindness. It isn't, and the right of first refusal is not a rumor. I draft responses, delete them, breathe. My rules of engagement sit taped inside a cabinet. No public posts, no back and forth in threads, root money questions through counsel, speak only to facts when silence would mislead. People expect a clapback. I give them a calendar. The first repayment clears on time, neat as a line of type. Just past midnight, Noah's message slides into the quiet like a coin across a counter. You win. Happy now? I read it twice, taste the old bait, and answer in 4 words that are neither unkind nor soft. Thank Grandma. And grow up. You think you're better because of a piece of paper? I keep my fingers light. I think our grandmother kept her promises in writing. Now we're keeping ours. Repay the funds, respect the deed, get your SUV with earnings that are yours. He sends a thumbs down and a photo of taillights. I let the bubble fade and do not rescue it. In the morning, I carry cookies to the studio and leave a plate at the bakery for Aunt Rose. She laughs and says the glaze is thinner than last week. I tell her the edges are holding. The app pivots to weather and lost mittens. At the grocery store, a neighbor pauses by the clementines and says, "Family is complicated." I smile, agree, and ask how her father is recovering from surgery. People remember kindness longer than they remember rumors. I learned that shelving flyers in the library when I was 16. Back at Olive Branch, I send proofs, revise a line about ink sustainability, and sign a check to the community college for the next class. Quiet spreads like heat under a door. I keep breathing, steadily. That night, I turn on Do Not Disturb and slide the agreement into its folder again. Not to worship it, but to practice a belief. Durable choices deserve routine. The lake photo over my desk holds winter light like a good lens, and the dock looks level in snow. I whisper my grandmother's sentence to the empty room, don't thin the edges, and feel something answer. Quiet carries through the apartment. Oven cooling, radiator ticking, pen tapping once. I am not campaigning. I am keeping house in my own life. When the bedtime timer rings, I turn out the lights and let the dark make its case for rest. Early February lays a white hush over the lake. We meet at the cottage because my parents call it neutral ground, though the floors remember everything. I arrive first, set the kettle on, and place an envelope on the scarred oak table. Steam softens the windows. The kettle hums softly. Snow writes lines beyond the glass. I let paper speak before anyone raises a voice. Dad parks close, door closing like a gavel. Mom follows, cheeks bright. Noah lingers, photographing icicles. We trade greetings inside mittens. Dad rubs his hands and goes straight to purpose. Expenses are rising. The cottage eats cash. We should list it. Winter buyers are serious. Mom adds, if we close by spring, we can restructure and get Noah into the SUV he needs for clients. I fold my gloves, slide the envelope forward, and choose my opening. Before numbers, clarity. 2 sheets glide out. A photo of a holiday scratch-off and a certification with a neutral trust name, the lottery seal in hard blue. This is what I intended to give you on Thanksgiving. The room stills. Noah blinks. Mom's hand rises, then stops. Dad studies the seal the way he reads contracts. No one sits. I'm not asking for applause, I say. I'm giving context. I kept it quiet, claimed through a trust, and built a life without putting anyone on stage. Today is about boundaries, not spectacle. I tap a third page. The recorded right of first refusal, indeed. And this is the rule we follow. Dad exhales. Why show us this now? So you understand 2 things, I answer. 1, I'm solvent. Pressure isn't necessary. 2, the cottage isn't a chip-to-fund image. It's a place with instructions. Noah stares at the ticket. So you just kept it? I kept faith with myself, I say, and with Grandma's paperwork. I place a printed sheet between us. There are 2 paths. First, you keep the cottage. We create a repair plan, roof and dock this year, managed by a contractor I choose, paid by my trust, in exchange for a no-sale covenant for 5 years. Second, if you insist on selling, I exercise the right of first refusal at a fair appraised price through my trust and grant you 12 reserved weekends a year as guests. Either way, the place stays whole. Mom's eyes shine, not from joy. You'd buy it out from us? I'd buy it back for us, I answer, from a future that treats history as clutter. Dad straightens. Assets should work. Sentiment doesn't pay taxes. Stewardship does, I say. Pick a path, and we'll put taxes on a schedule. He gestures at the papers. What if we decline both? Then my attorney files for an injunction, and a judge reads what Grandma wrote. I reply, calm as the kettle pushing toward whistle. I'd rather not outsource our memory. Silence takes a chair. Snow taps the glass. The kettle begins to sing, and I lift it off before it shouts. Mom reaches the photo, holding it like a postcard from a place she didn't visit. You were going to give this away, she says quietly. Yes, I answer. Then I heard how you planned to spend me. I chose edge over approval. I gather pages into 2 stacks. Options left, proof right, and slide a pen to the center. We leave here with a plan, I say, or with a court date. I'm fine with either. One keeps us a family, the other keeps the house. I will not let wind take the rim. Snow hushes the cottage while we stand around the table like people waiting for a verdict. I steady my breath, touch the envelope once, and say what I came to say. I'm not trying to buy affection, I tell them. I'm using what I have to do, what Grandma asked. This isn't leverage for love. It's compliance with her intent. The steam from the kettle moves toward the rafters and disappears, as if even heat knows when to step back. Noah pockets his phone. Dad studies the wood grain. Mom keeps both palms around her cup so the porcelain can't rattle. Here are the conditions, I continue, and I make them plain, not sharp. First, you will not ask me to fund anything for Noah. Cars, courses, commissions, image, or emergencies. He earns his tools the way adults do. Second, you will not list or pledge the cottage without asking me first. My recorded right of first refusal governs every possible buyer, every time. 3rd, from this moment forward, all money conversations move through attorneys. No texts, no side calls, no guilt drafts labeled family. If you need something, ask in writing through counsel. If I choose to help, the trust will answer. The clock above the mantel ticks softly, careful, like it doesn't want to be named as sound. Dad opens his mouth, closes it, and wipes his glasses, even though they don't need it. Noah shifts his weight, the floorboard acknowledging him with a small complaint. I keep my voice even. I'm not punishing anyone, I'm protecting edges. The last few months taught me the law of money, and I'm going to live by it. Mom's hand trembles. Tea kisses the rim and settles. She whispers, almost to the cup, I am afraid of being poor. The sentence lands between us like a fragile plate. I put my palms flat on the table. So am I say. That's why I learned how money works. That's why everything is documented. Fear is not a plan. Terms are. She nods once at the grammar of it, then looks up, eyes shining but focused. Dad clears his throat again, less certain than I have ever seen him. And if we agree? He asks. I answer, then we treat each other like neighbors who want the building to stand. The repair plan moves ahead, or the purchase proceeds, and the rest follows the schedule we signed. A draft slides under the door and lifts a curl of paper. No one reaches to catch it. The room stays polite, almost reverent. I want family, I add, but not at the cost of disappearing. The words travel the boards and return intact. No one argues, and the peace surprises me. Accusations would have been easier to parry. Acceptance asks me to hold still. Dad bows his head first. Mom follows, the cup anchored between her hands. Noah exhales and nods, not conceding exactly, but acknowledging the math. The storm outside grinds its teeth against the windows and moves on. Somewhere a loon calls, winter thin and sure. I gather the papers, slide them into the envelope, and feel the quiet settle like fresh snow, undisturbed because the path is finally marked. I walk them through next steps. Note, selecting option 1 or option 2 within 10 days, contractor visit Saturday, or appraisal Monday if they choose the sale route. I leave copies and a stamped envelope addressed to counsel. Nobody reaches for theatrics. Coats go on, boots creak. At the threshold, Mom squeezes my sleeve, not to stop me, only to confirm I am solid, unshaken. I leave the cottage with the snow unbroken except for a single path my boots have written. The air smells like iron and pine. At the steps, I look back once, the way you glance at a stove you've already turned off, and hear my grandmother's sentence the way a chord returns to its home key. Don't thin the edges. The wind nudges my scarf. I tuck it tighter and understand the rest of her lesson. If a crust keeps its rim, the filling won't run. Driving home, the lake rides beside me as a dark ribbon. I crack the window and let the cold clean the last noise out of the car. When the road straightens, I see steam in my mind, rising from a pumpkin pie, curls drifting toward the ceiling like quiet handwriting. It's not nostalgia. It's instruction. At my desk, I build a file named ROFR-election. Inside it go the pieces that turn intention into shape. A cover letter electing the right of first refusal under the recorded rider, an appraisal order, a trust officer's proof of funds, draft escrow instructions with dates that respect winter, a tender of earnest money, a proposed maintenance plan for roof and dock, should they choose the keep and repair path instead. I add a short rule at the top. Hold the house, not hostages, and underline it once. I email the listing agent and both lawyers, attaching the election and asking for confirmation of receipt. The subject line is plain, so no one mistakes it. Notice to exercise right of first refusal. Olivia Monroe. I print a certified copy and note the tracking number in ink. Paper, not volume. Shape, not shove. Before bed, I mix flour, salt, cold butter. The bowl clicks softly under the spoon. I press and turn, never drag, and the edge rises beneath my thumbs, familiar as breath. When the crust is crimped, I say it aloud into the warm kitchen. I am the rim of my own life. The pie goes into the oven, the room fills with cinnamon and a promise that has nothing to prove. This isn't victory as a headline. It's justice with manners, soft enough to be eaten, firm enough to hold. I set the timer, wash the bowl, and watch steam bead the window until it clears, knowing the morning will find a cooled pie and a waiting packet, both ready to be served exactly as intended. Whispers don't retire. They change shoes and keep walking from porch to porch. Half the cousins call me clear-eyed. The rest prefer the easier label, ungrateful. At the grocery store, someone says I'm brave. At church, another wonders out loud if bookkeeping girls ever understand love. I let both land and pass. The agreement exists, the repairs have dates, and the dock will hold in spring. Instead of pushing back online, I print flyers for a free evening workshop. Family money, plain English. Age 50 and up, no registration required. The notice lists topics: custodial accounts, beneficiaries, trustees, receipts, records, and a sentence that calms people before they arrive. No shame, only clarity. The library offers a quiet room with a whiteboard and a coffee urn that sighs like a contented bus. Night 1, a retired nurse asks whether UTMA withdrawals must be, for the kid. Really for the kid. Yes, I say exclusively. A grandfather admits he kept statements in a shoebox and never knew to transfer ownership at 21. We write steps on the board. Identify, document, notify, transfer. I pass stapled handouts that show where to find digits worth memorizing. The markers squeak. People take notes like rain. By the third session, our group has become a small town inside a room. We practice phrases that make hard talks survivable. Please send the accounting. I will respond through counsel. Let's put that in writing. Someone asks about trusts with ridiculous names. I smile and say the best ones sound boring, we shares. Cookies Aunt Rose baked and laugh at how paperwork scares bullies the way flashlights scatter raccoons. On the final night, she slips into the back row. Hood up, scarf high, the posture of a person auditing a class she never thought she'd need. I know that coat. I know that tremor in her hand when a pen waits. I see her and do not say her name. I move through slides about rights of first refusal and durable stewardship and keep my voice steady for everyone, including the woman staring at the tabletop as if letters might jump. When we close, attendees clap, soft and grateful. She lingers by the door, then leaves before thanks could bruise either of us. On the board, the last sentence remains. Boundaries preserve love. I cap the marker and let silence complete the lesson. Outside, snow whispers approval over the library steps. The week the lake finally loosened its ice, Olive Branch won a regional design award. The plaque was small enough to warm in my palm, yet it weighed more than a microphone could. I set it beside the studio plant, wrote plain thank you emails, and called Aunt Rose. We had circled the idea since Thanksgiving. Now we named it and gave it edges. At her kitchen table, between racks of cooling crusts, we drafted criteria that respected work, merit, need, and a portfolio that shows hours, not flash. We called it Rose's Pie Scholarship, because a good edge holds a pie and a person. Funding would arrive quietly through my trust. The bakery would match a slice from holiday sales. Guidance counselors would hand out sealed envelopes with instructions, deadlines, and a direct line for questions. No speeches, no spotlights, just tuition paid and supplies purchased without apology. I rented a P.O. box, filed bylaws, scheduled quarterly meetings, and kept minutes neat enough to stand daylight. First year, 4 artists received tuition and essential supplies quietly. The announcement traveled by library flyer and a paragraph in the school newsletter. Most replies were simple and kind. Thank you, this matters. A few voices pushed the same old dare. If you have money, why hide? Why not stand up and teach a public lesson? I answered the way I run the studio, by design. Some gifts grow better without posing. Anonymity keeps the story about the student, not the donor, and it prevents gratitude debt from racking interest it never owed. At the first awards night, I sat in the back row and let applause find the right names. A girl in thrift store boots clutched her envelope, like a compass. A shy boy wiped his palms on his jeans and smiled through tears. Aunt Rose passed cookies shaped like leaves, each crimped the way my grandmother taught me at the lake. Afterward, a parent whispered, "Whoever did this saved a year we couldn't afford." I returned her smile and kept the secret where it belongs, in quiet strong enough to hold. On my way home, I carried the plaque, the empty tray, and my grandmother's sentence in my mouth. Don't thin the edges. Kept quiet, it holds more lives than applause. The plaque will live on a shelf, a reminder that recognition can whisper while the scholarship does the talking where it matters most. Morning finds me at the kitchen table with Grandma Rose's notebook open to pumpkin pie. The coil creaks, paper sighs, and a thin slip falls from the spine. In her neat hand, a single line waits. "Olivia, you see other people. Remember to see yourself." The room brightens. I touch the ink with 2 fingers like testing a crust and feel the sentence hold, soft, then firm. I tuck the note between recipes and walk to the cabinet where the good china lives. Porcelain rings like quiet bells as I lift each plate. The plates shine in morning light. Tonight, friends will gather. Aunt Rose with her steady humor, the cafe owner who believed in fair invoices, the student who just mailed a first paid bill, 2 neighbors who know how to listen. I set places for every name and lay linen that isn't saving itself for someday. A knock interrupts the kettle's first whisper. A courier stands on the stoop, envelope stamped with a county seal. Inside rests the contract that exercises my right of first refusal. The numbers are exact, dates reasonable, signature lines waiting. I read each clause, confirm the appraisal reference, and press my pen where it matters. The cottage will not be a bargaining chip or a rumor. It will be an anchor with taxes paid and maintenance scheduled. I seal the packet and place it beside the recipe book. Memory and law sit shoulder to shoulder. Afternoon climbs the wall. I fold napkins, cue music, and breathe in a life that does not beg for applause. When the doorbell rings, coats land on the rack, stories warm the room, and plates travel from hand to hand. We eat pie that holds because the edge is thick and patient. Someone toasts to quiet victories. We clink water and laugh anyway. For once, I do not narrate my worth. I am seen because I am here, steady and enough. Late, after dishes, I stand by the sink and study what remains. Clean forks, crumbs like confetti, warmth without performance. I think of the girl who sliced pie while the driveway shouted new car and send her this message. We made it to a table that loves us back. If anyone asks me what revenge looks like, I will answer without heat. It's resetting the rules, reclaiming my voice, and building something better from what was taken. That is the justice I can live with. Documented, kind, durable. Before we say goodbye, we'd love to know where you're watching from. Is it a quiet morning with a warm cup of coffee, or a late night where stories like this keep you company? Tell us in the comments. We read everyone with gratitude. And if this story touched your heart, consider subscribing to the channel. Be part of a community that believes in kindness, healing, and second chances. Wherever you are, carry this one gently, and remember, sometimes the miracle doesn't knock. It waits until you're ready to open the door.